As of writing this, I am currently in the middle of Wave 3 in the Gateway Experience audio tracks. If you don't already know, there are 8 waves or sets of about 5 to 10 tracks each. I'm really taking my own pace with it. I like to really take my time and give myself plenty of opportunity to kind of let it sit with me before progressing to the next track. The last thing I want to do is push myself too hard, if you know what I mean. I first started about a year ago around November/December 2022, and I've slowly progressed through the tracks intermittently since then, and I'm currently about halfway through Wave 3. I might make this a multi-part series as I keep track of some of what I've experienced with these HemiSync tracks. In addition, I'll probably be making some content in the future discussing some interesting experiences I've had with meditation and psychedelics. During Wave 1, in my mind's eye, I was in the body of this naked, sweaty, greasy, large, muscly caveman type of being, and I was inside of this building in a medical type of room full of operating chairs. I was strapped into one of these chairs, all of the other chairs were empty, and I was being poked and prodded with scary-looking instruments by these beings which look like gray aliens. Now, I'm sure that sounds pretty terrifying, but I actually had a lot of power and control over these beings, and I could break away from them and make them stop at any time with my magical powers, which included but not limited to Jedi Force. I could also cause extreme physical harm to them at any time I so chose to. At first I tried to just use my magical powers to push their hand/instruments away from me, but the second I released my grip on them, they would consistently go right back to harming me as much as possible. Eventually, I realized that the absolute only thing that would make them stop was physical force and immobilizing injuries. I couldn't really kill them entirely, but I could mess them up pretty bad, physically injuring them severely enough to the point where they were immobilized, although I didn't really want to do it all that much. But that's the kicker, I didn't want to harm them, and they knew it, and they exploited that to their fullest advantage in their quest to harm me as much as possible. That's what they apparently do to keep people trapped. They exploit your pity for them and harm you if you don't fight back and stop them. Eventually, after countless failed attempts to try to reason with them while using only lighter force, I was left with no other choice than to throw them around like a bunch of rag dolls, and injure them to the point that they were immobilized. It's pretty graphic, but it's certainly no worse than what they were trying to do to me, and others I would presume, and it's completely their fault because they clearly left me with no other choice. Then, I walked out of this building and I started to walk around outside, and any time I saw another one of them come across my way attempting to start shit, I would immediately jump right to throwing them around like rag dolls with my magical powers. That's basically the end of that particular visualization I had. There are other visualizations I had later during different gateway tracks that I might be discussing at some point in the future as well. Another thing that I learned was that the Loosh myth is just something that they made up to try to make people feel sorry for them in order to offer a food donation of suffering to feed them. For those who don't already know, there's this idea floating around about these reptilians, or reptile-like humanoid aliens, who have to feed on the energy that gets produced from beings that are suffering. This suffering energy that they allegedly feed off of is also known as Loosh. I actually haven't seen any reptilians so far, but I did see beings which look like gray aliens, and they don't actually need to do any of this horrible bullshit. They just have free will to choose to do these horrible things for its own sake. There's no higher purpose other than that. They don't even need to do this for survival. They would actually be better off if they were to cut this shit out entirely, but they simply choose to not listen to reason. They're just completely stupid and pure evil, and they are like that by choice, not by necessity or circumstance. They're not even really powerful either. You have the power and control to fight back and stop them. They just exploit your pity and hesitancy to fight back against them. That's it. That's all the power and leverage they have over you, your irrational guilt that you experience when you protect yourself from their bullshit. That's at least what I saw in my gateway experience. You're probably wondering if I think that this whole gateway experience was real or just a metaphor for my brain. My answer, I don't know, but I'm open to both possibilities.